Hi guys. So before we get into the video, I just wanted to do a quick intro into the episode we did on grief. We did that episode like it's been a few months on the podcast, which is the Relevant Health and Wellness podcast. Please go have a listen. And just to give some context on how that episode came about, we did an episode, myself and Kennedy, on why black men struggle with vulnerability. And as we did that episode, I think the subject of grief came up maybe a little bit. It wasn't explicit, but it was there on just how Kennedy dealt with certain things, and that's how grief came to be, like the episode on dealing with grief. And I just asked Ken like some questions on how dealing with grief differs from person to person, how, as people who want to support someone who has experienced loss, how we could help them. So that was what the episode was about. So obviously it's like 20, no, it's about 30 minutes. So please have a watch. I don't know what I'm saying, but please have a look and just, I guess this is the video format of the audio episode we did. And if you want to just listen to it, it's on Relevant Health and Wellness, and we're on Anchor and Spotify. And also we have an Instagram page as well. It's called Relevant Health and Wellness. So anyways, I hope I've not dropped too many names. I hope you still get it, but please do enjoy this video, and I hope you do get something out of it. Just to put it out there again, we're not therapists. I am a pharmacist. I am not a psychologist, but I am very passionate about, mental health, about us taking care of ourselves, mind, body, and soul. Hence why, this whole thing started about 2 years ago. So I would love for you to join us on this journey. The YouTube channel has just started, but we really want to sort of make this an extension of the podcast, and hopefully it can be good. So thank you again for being part of the community, and subscribe, share our content, make suggestions, whatever way you feel you can contribute. So thank you again, and have an amazing day. Although at the end of the episode, I'm sure I said have an amazing weekend. Either way, hope you're good. Bye, guys.
So, in terms of how grief affects people differently, from my personal experience, I feel grief depends on the degree of separation. So I'll explain what that means. If you have like 1 degree of separation to someone where you're so close and that's a direct impact, it would be different to if you have like 6 degrees, right? Where it's like an extended person you heard about so far. So the way you react to grief will determine on the proximity and how close you are to that loss in your life, right? So I think that's the first factor, because I'll just give you an example. If someone I heard about in like 2 neighborhoods away died on the news, it would be a different feeling to someone in my house, right? Or someone I'm related to. So I think that's the first factor. Another thing to think about is also the timing of the experience. Is this your first time of grieving, or have you grieved before? Because for the first time, it hits you like a ton of bricks. You don't know what to do. It's a change in experience, and you just have to go with the feels. That there isn't a set way. But if you've gone through it before, it's not your first rodeo, then you might react differently. So I think that's another important factor. But the third one, which everyone should know about, is how you deal with disappointment. Okay, so knowing how you personally deal with disappointments, understanding yourself, because we're always going to go through highs and lows in life. So if you know how you deal with disappointment, then it kind of helps you to an extent to understand how you deal with this particular loss, right? Because if you go to the left when you have disappointment and you either blame yourself, or you go to the other end and you blame everyone else, then that might come up when you're going through grief. And from my own experience, I think the way I deal with things in life has been a revolving factor, where I've seen that whenever I was going through grief, I went to those cues of, okay, this is how I deal with disappointment or bad news, and I think that's how it affects people. So I've mentioned degree of separation, if it's your first time, how you deal with disappointment. But another thing to bring into this conversation is context. Right. So in the context of
Okay.
grief, even siblings react differently because relationships
Absolutely.
are unique and we react by virtue of the relationship. I mean, it's difficult to
Absolutely.
explain except if it's you, how you reacted and also related to that person would determine your reaction, right? So my
Absolutely.
relationship with my dad, for example, will be different from what my sister has or had with him,
Mm.
So I think that context is really important because even within siblings, they react differently. So,
That that is a key thing. That's the key thing that I think just even me from the outside looking in, where you feel like every single person, whatever loss, I think it's a word that is sort of very similar to grief, or you could use it interchangeably, loss and grief. Whatever form of loss you've experienced in life, everybody reacts differently. That's the key thing because we are all unique, even if, like you said, siblings losing the same person, but the way you might grieve is different from your sister. And I think that's a key thing. So, like, if we kind of go on to that second point of someone who is trying to support. So, let's say, me coming in to say, okay, Ken, I'm here for you. It's also something to know the way I would support you would be different from the way I would support your sister. So, that's also something that people should sort of take note of as people supporting. And I think this is maybe where my head is really at the sense of grief is
mm,
how you can support the people in your life.
right.
Like, so if we're talking in terms of that place you were when it comes to grief,
Mm.
how did people around you react? And if you could, because I have some pointers I researched in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah,
what
sure,
people should do
sure.
and what people shouldn't do.
Uh-huh.
So, like, how did people around you react? And could you kind of just speak, or maybe things that you felt people could do better, or things
Yeah.
that you felt people did well?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think before we even go on to that point, one of the things to add to the first question is there isn't a set way to grief, right? Because you won't
Mm-hmm.
know how you react until it happens, right? And never apologize for how you feel. Just feel how you want to feel. So I think
Yeah.
that's a very, very important point to make. Now, in terms of the people around me and how they can help or how they could have helped when I went through like instances of grief, I'll just personalize this, right? And say when I was grieving, I'd have appreciated more guidance on where to go, for tools, for support, for any ways of processing what I was going through, any pointers. And what I found is the folks around my circle, they were doing their best to encourage and check in, but there wasn't any any professional direction of, hey, go away and have a look at this because it helps. I think the usual mantra is, how are you doing, let's check in on you. I think another thing I'd have appreciated in that time is just active listening, right? Listening to me and
Mm-hmm.
my body
Mm-hmm.
language, picking up on cues, verbal and non-verbal cues, because there's a time to cry and a time to be quiet. There's a time to be sensitive, to engage
That's
with me.
true.
And also there's also a time to help me snap out of what I was going through. So it depends on the relationship. You can't just apply that to anyone, right? If I have a friend, that knows me quite well, and he understands that I'm such a bubbly person and I always want to, do stuff that's fun. And if I'm going through this, they can come in and say, you know what, just snap out of it, let's change the mood. And that kind of thing would
Mm-hmm.
help, to pick me up, because sometimes when people are checking in is fantastic, but when it becomes a bit too much, it becomes like an overkill, right? Of people just checking.
That's I actually want to touch in on that because
Mm,
so then is it a case of the degree of how close they are to you? Because sometimes it might be a bit off putting if somebody who you don't really, really, really know starts
mm,
telling you, guy, now, it's time, let's go have drinks, let's get you out of the mood when you're like, mate, I don't really know you. I don't know if I'm
yeah,
making sense
yeah,
where
you
does
are.
it have to be someone who is really close that you are allowed to that is allowed to tell you like, okay, Ken, okay, you know what, let me get you out of this because this is becoming something that might be bad for you, because
Mm,
I understand that it's good to let you grieve, but at the same time this could become bad. Like What
Yeah,
do you like? What's your take on that?
yeah, no, I appreciate where you're coming from. I think, to be honest, if anyone is offering help, take it, right? It shouldn't matter if they're close to you or not, because sometimes it's easier to speak to people outside your circle because there isn't any subjectivity in their assessment of you and them being able to help. I think it's quite objective in that relationship that you're going to grief and they want to help you. Because sometimes when you have people within your circle, there's always that inflection of, oh, are you grieving this way because of me? Am I not doing something enough, or am I doing too little? Right? But
That's
if there's
interesting.
yeah, but if there's someone outside your circle that maybe doesn't understand all of the other intricacies of what you're going through locally, and they're coming to offer the support, yeah, put your hand up and go for it. I think it's always good to be open in terms of grief, to take on any help and support that you receive. But where it can become a problem is when everyone is offering you help and support continuously without giving you space to breathe and space to actually grieve and understand what this means to you. And this was what I was saying
Yeah.
about too much checking in sometimes can be an adverse effect, because you're taking someone back to a memory that they're trying to process, right? So what I would advise for anyone in that particular space that's trying to help someone grieving would be, try and share like beautiful memories of the person, right? To keep the happy memories alive, rather than just a check-in of, how you doing today. You said that yesterday, okay, you're gonna say it again today. Like, just,
Like,
yeah.
that's
So a little
true.
bit of a
That's
twist
true.
of, because we both know this person that has gone, let us share on happy memories, beautiful memories, just to kind of have a different perspective, and maybe to uplift my
Yeah.
spirit, as a person that is
Yeah.
grieving, rather than, oh, how you doing, how you doing. And I'm not casting or castigating any of the folks that are saying how you doing, because that's also important to check in that people are actually looking after themselves, because there's a tendency when you're grieving to just go away into like a recluse state and not even check on yourself or do things that you should be doing
Yeah.
normally, like hygiene, because people take grief like to the extreme sometimes.
Very,
Yeah.
very. And do you know what? It's interesting what you're saying, because I think ultimately the people in your life, they really have to be sensitive to you. Because it's funny, the research I did, which is, I'm like, you can't really research this,
Mm.
but just from the little I've seen,
Yeah.
some people go, yes, it's great to share those memories, but for some, they don't want that in their face all the time.
Yeah.
They want to just process it, whether it was good memories or bad, because sometimes it wasn't all great memories, right?
Mm, mm,
So,
mm.
which is another angle. So sometimes when it feels like you're constantly bombarding them with that positive, that, oh, the positive memories, let's live on the beautiful memories. Like,
Yeah.
for some people, it's not even great. So I think maybe the key thing I'm even getting here is just be sensitive to the people who are grieving.
Mm,
Like you're saying, in terms of sometimes, yes, they want that push in of be in their face,
mm.
but then sometimes you have to kind of pull back
Yeah.
and be like, okay, you know what? I've done the cooking for them. I've checked in.
Mm.
It's time to give them that space. So
Yeah.
it's just, I think the key thing is active listening and just being sensitive, which is a skill you have to learn. But then if you are really trying to support the people in your life, it's something that you're going to have to do if you really want to support them. I don't know what you feel about that. But
I agree, and I think it's also important that both people in this conversation, for example, shouldn't be so hard on themselves, right? When
mm,
you're grieving, sometimes it's your first time, right? And sometimes, even if it's not your first time, the feeling isn't the same. You can't compare them,
it's
right?
not.
So try and take it in steps and just ensure that go with what works for you, right? It's okay to process your feelings. It's okay to go through it. In my own personal opinion, I didn't, and it came out in different ways. I had transfer of aggression and different other things. So I would advise anyone that is grieving to just go through it, actually deal with it, right? So that's on that part. Now, for the folks around them that are trying to help, Also, don't be hard on yourself, don't force it. So the verbal and non-verbal cues from whoever is grieving is important to listen to that, and also work with them on where they need support, like more or less of something. Okay, so I think it's really
I think
crucial
that's
that,
the key thing.
yeah, just that emotional intelligence of just being there and being in sync with what they want and what they need at different points is
Yeah,
really, really important.
yeah. That's that is. I think that's such a key thing from just everything that like we're talking about, everything that I've been reading on. And when I say grief or loss, it's not just even losing someone like maybe in terms of death. It could be like heavy things, miscarriage is like
Mm,
it's even loss of maybe a breakup, or it's grieving. You're grieving like
yeah,
it's a whole basket of
absolutely.
things that grief comes under. So as someone in their life again is knowing that cue,
Mm,
or maybe somebody who's broken up and then you're that close friend and you're like, okay, today's the day that we need to go to that bar or we need to go out on town, like
yeah,
whatever it is, or someone in your life has had a miscarriage, and knowing when to just let them mourn the loss of that child that could have been,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it's
right.
just the different tangible, or like a death of a parent, a death of a sibling, a death of a child. Like,
Mm.
oof, grief is heavy, but
Yeah, it is.
again,
It
there are
is.
tools that we can say, okay, we know better. Because, and the reason why maybe I'm not less bit passionate about it, but willing to really learn is I felt like I couldn't deal with it in the past. I didn't
Mm,
know what to do.
right.
And the only thing I felt like I could do was either run away from it
Yeah.
or do the thing of, oh, I am sorry for your loss. I'm here for you, but are you really there?
Hmm.
So it's those two extremes, or you come with the the church way of saying, he's in a, or he or she is in a better place. They don't sometimes, like, the person doesn't want to hear that.
Mm,
And it was also something that I actually read on where they said, just because you're a person of faith, even if that person says they're a Christian, don't enforce it on them at that point in time.
yeah.
Pray for them in your closet,
Right.
but just be there for them. Don't come in there and start preaching to them, because that's not what they want to hear.
Mm.
And that thing kind of like, ooh, this is real. Like, don't
It
just
is absolutely,
like
absolutely.
I don't know, like, well, I don't know if you got all those churchy type
Um,
things and
yeah, I did, I did, I
there
did,
is
I did,
there is
and I think for me as a person grieving, I try my best not to put people down when they're trying to help, because I want to understand that it's coming from a good place, right? Because
mm,
sometimes when you're grieving, you can close yourself up and just react to everything and feel like people are coming after you. But the first positive assumption is people actually genuinely care about you. That's why they're coming to check in on you. I think once you have that
yeah.
mindset, it helps with the reception of the kind of support that you're getting. Now,
Mhm.
on the other hand, to your point, that active listening definitely goes a long way for you to kind of test and try and see what works with this person, right? Some people might just want you to sit down with them and say nothing.
Yeah,
Just be there,
that's true.
be in the moment.
That's true.
Some other people might just want you to, send them words of affirmation and just help them regain their confidence. Some people might just say, pray for me, in absentia. I might not know you're doing it, but just by that. Some other people just want you to come and help them fix stuff, because when you're going through grief, there's a lot of logistics there you have to manage. And,
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and even if you're not emotionally sensitive, but you are logically aware of what needs to happen, you can fill that gap. You could come in and say, yes, I know you're going through this. I'm going to help you handle this. Let me help you relieve the burden of what you're going through,
Mhm.
and try not to fit into like a role that you're not good at, right? Don't come and be haphazardly trying to help someone go through emotions when you're not an emotional type. Don't force it.
Yeah.
Just do what you know you're good at, as someone trying to help somebody that's going through grief. So I think
This is
as
such a great. I actually want to stay on this
mm,
because
mm,
it's getting me to think differently. Where
yeah,
that whole thing of, if you're not a cook, don't say, oh, because yes, you heard that
Yeah.
with help, then you now decide that no, instead maybe if you can order food for them,
Mm.
or
Mm.
like you said, if you feel like you're more logically inclined, then you think to yourself, what could they need in this time? So
Yeah.
again, is I feel there are key points we're touching on, which is just that sensitivity. No matter which part of the spectrum you are in terms of emotional intelligence, or
Mm.
okay, if you're left brain or right brain, okay, this is where you are. Just meet them and
Yeah.
say, okay, this is what I can do. I'm not very good with the emotion. I can't sit down there and cry with you, but
Mm.
this is what I can do. Okay,
Yeah.
so then as opposed to not doing anything,
Yeah.
because that's not great either. Even if you think, oh, you're being there, you're thinking of them, but it doesn't mean that you're supporting them if you're just thinking of them and that's it. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I think
It's,
sometimes there's no absolute right way, but
yeah, absolutely. I think I'll just mention one thing you shouldn't do when you're helping someone is to rush them through the process, right? And
ooh,
because it's not on your own time, it's on their own time for them to process what you're going through. And I've seen bad instances of someone saying, "Just get over it. Come on, the person has been gone 5 years or something." You know, like,
that's the
hang on
worst.
a minute.
That's the
It
worst.
takes people different times to manage loss.
hmm
Some people never get the same after they've lost
They
someone that they
never.
care about. They find a way to live their life without that person, but genuinely they don't get back to 100%. So if you're coming in thinking that, oh, I'm going to help you, give you tough love and tell you just get over it, just fix it, or do it, that's the absolutely no. Don't try doing that, because one, the person feels like, hang on a minute, are you discrediting my grief? Are you saying that what I'm doing isn't worth it? And it,
Yeah,
it kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
makes that person feel like, you don't get it, do you? And there's this whole defense wall that puts up, and I think after that they're like, okay, I don't think they're ready to engage, they don't understand me, so anything you say after that wouldn't sink in. So I
I,
think you
like
should you should literally take a step back and kind of,
the wall just comes up the
yeah,
minute
it
you
does,
do that.
it
The
does, it
walls
does.
just like, and even if you feel sorry, it's depending on who the person is,
Mm.
they might not let you in again,
Yeah.
because the minute you do that and you sort of diminish the way they feel,
Mm.
that's it. And like you said, for some people they are forever changed, like literally character change. And you, as someone in their life, you actually have to be comfortable with the fact that they are forever changed. If
Right.
somebody was really bubbly, and then after a heavy loss or whatever the loss is,
Mm.
their personality becomes more quiet. You need to be comfortable with the fact that that person is now more quiet, and
Yeah.
be like, okay, this is this is who I'm working with now. This is who I'm dealing with now,
Mm. Yeah.
and that's okay. So it's this is really great. Like, oh, okay, this is really good, and I really hope that somebody gets, even if it's one person that gets something like out of this,
Yeah.
because even me as I am, I'm learning.
Mm.
I'm really trying to learn in terms of that supporting someone who's grieving, or supporting someone who has lost someone, even if it was 20 years ago, it could still be
Yeah.
affecting them till
That's
this
right.
very day. So you can't just again diminish or say, it's been so long. It isn't to them,
Yeah.
because that's a loss for them. So it's really good.
No, no,
This is
it's all
really
good, and
great.
I think because there's such a gap, because I know you mentioned like tools on how to help someone. There's a gap, in my
Mm,
opinion. Like personally, I never found any tool or information piece out there to say this is what you do when you're grieving, or what you can do to
mm.
help someone grieving. It's almost a taboo subject, even though it's a
It is.
certainty in life that we're born and we die, but people don't want to talk about that. It's just too morbid to talk
They
about.
they
You know,
they don't.
so we're all
They
very ill
don't.
prepared when it happens. I think we just use our natural human instinct to adapt, but there isn't
Mm,
like a set way to say, you know what, this is what you should do. Like for me, later on in life, I digged into like other options, right? And
mhm.
I picked on therapy as one, but I wish I knew about
That's
that 10 years ago, when I first experienced such a huge loss, because So many things
But
that I'd gone through in the 10-year span would have been dealt with and addressed prior, so I
yeah,
think that that's a tool that I've found recently that I would recommend is please go for therapy or use your friends and family to discuss. It helps, just to talk through
yeah,
it.
yeah,
People that you
absolutely.
care about, those that you trust, be open and have positive assumptions that people genuinely care about you. They care about your
Hmm.
welfare, and that's why they're checking in. I think those are some very simple tools. You don't have to have like a book or a guide of like magnificent tools,
That's true. That's true.
but
There
reach
are
out to your
things.
friends, have a
Reach
conversation,
out.
just try and do something that you enjoy. Don't just stay in that space, right? When you
Yeah.
think that okay, you've had enough of this now, you've actually grieved to the highest, you want to try something, just look for something that you can put your energy to. I think that's something that helped me. I put a lot of energy and time and effort to, I won't say put my anger and pain, but into something productive. So it's kind of channeling my
Mhm.
energy
Mhm.
into that. I think that was also
Yeah.
helpful for me in that time.
That's really key. And just obviously this is going to be a shout out to the IGTV we did on like just mental health.
Hmm.
So if you guys want to go check it on my Instagram page, it's Anne of Mojo Iyela, and we talked on some of these things as well in terms of just tools that you could use. So if it's like just you have online therapy now, so let's say for the different places that because we know our audience, so like in Nigeria now, that
Hmm.
particular day I think we talked on like was it mental health Nigeria.
Yeah.
There's another one I found that it's called Olive, is it Olive Prime or something, they're based in Abuja. So
Right.
this is for like our Nigerian folks now. And then I think for the UK there is it Better Health? I'm not sure if Better Health is in the UK or in the US, but they're actually tools, they're resources online. But it's almost like once you feel like what, I'm ready to seek help,
Hmm.
just reach out. And again, like you said, a friend of a friend, someone could direct you. If you ask for help, people will actually be willing to help you. And I think that's another thing in terms of resources or tools you could use. But it's that thing of you have to kind of say, okay, I'm ready, but on your own time. I think, which is what you
Yeah.
talked
Yeah.
about.
Absolutely. I
On
think
your
that.
own time, reach out for help, and you will get it.
Yeah.
I think that's the key.
I think there's a spiritual angle to this as well. And when I say spiritual, it's just we're all spiritual beings, right? And we have a level of soulfulness and mindfulness that we all crave. And being in community helps, right? And when I say community, it could be in a group of people with shared interests, right? Even if it's
Mm,
church, a mosque, or even if it's like another social gathering, being able to have that community definitely helps to pull you away from like a place of isolation, but a place where
mm,
you've got people around that are doing other things that you enjoy. Okay, and you can draw strength from that. You can draw an element of sense and relief and also purpose, because when you go through grief, a lot of these foundations are shaking, because you start questioning the purpose of life,
everything.
why you're here, why did this happen. You've got more questions than answers, and all of those
Hmm.
questions won't get answered by yourself. So I think being able to be in a group, right, that would help either process some of this or give you something different away from your current state of grief. Is always good to reach out to
Mm.
that. And let's not discredit those folks, because those guys are like the real MVPs, if you like unsung
Yeah.
heroes. I know about church communities, I know about even neighborhood communities, basketball teams, and just some of these things that you do, even if it's dance or whatever. Just make sure you
Yeah.
tap into that
True.
as an
Yeah.
outlet,
Yeah.
because that's another tool.
Mm.
People, and this is why I was saying at the start of this conversation, you should know how you deal with disappointment, because there's a good parallel between how you deal with that and also when you go through grief. Where's your happy place? Where do you go, when you're stressed
Mm.
out? Where do you go when things are becoming too much? Do you go away on a holiday? Do you go somewhere, to kind of reconvene and get yourself back? Is it in the church space? I don't know. Whatever works
Yeah.
for you. And this
Yeah.
is my whole point, is make sure you also use that as another avenue, to get yourself back on track.
No, that's a really good thing of just knowing those things. So like you're saying, you've got family or friends, you've got communities, and sometimes like some people actually would want people who are grieving like them. So that's another community if you want that.
Mm.
So you have that where you can say, okay, these are people who are they would understand how what I'm going through.
Yeah.
So you could reach out to those sort of communities as well. So there are definitely tools, but I think the key thing is just in your own time. Everybody grieves differently. There is no right way to do it, which is I think what we're trying to say with this episode is
Mm.
there's no right way to do it. And when you are ready for help, when you're ready for support, it's out there. So kind of like, don't feel like you're alone because
Yeah.
like you said, when you're grieving, you literally feel like everything is just solved. Like, when you see the carpet is just drawn from under you. Like
Yeah.
you have no idea what is going on in your life. So I think this was really good. Was there anything else you felt like you wanted to just share with people, or just a resource or something that you feel people could reach out to if they're in this process or trying to support someone?
Yeah, I think I would recommend for the easy things, right? Which is not even going on the internet. It's basically just being there. Try and be there as a person for anyone going through grief. And when I say be there, is literally mind, body, soul, right? Be right there.
Mm,
Don't say, "Hey, I'm here to help you grieve," but my mind is somewhere else, right? That defeats the purpose. And another thing is, grief is a certainty that everyone's gonna experience, direct or indirect, and we need to ensure we don't shy away from it. Let's
mhm,
try and, I wouldn't say embrace it, because you shouldn't embrace it. You should just work with the process. All right,
mhm.
accept that it's gonna come, but also be in a position where you're open to learn, because as a grievee in this case, or this person supporting them, you're always going to learn more about yourself as you go through grief.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a really good one. Oof, that was very zen. Oh. That was really good.
Was
That
it?
was really good.
No, I mean, I'm
It
just
was.
speaking from the heart. I mean, that's the truth.
No,
Like,
but and I think that's the key thing because, like we said even before we started this, was we just want to be real. And again, we don't know everything. Like we are learning as much as we want our community to learn. So that's why, like, we're speaking from the heart, knowing that we don't know everything and we're just trying to help each other. So that's what literally we're trying to do with this entire community of being part of relevant health and wellness, especially for the black and brown people because those are the people we know that we're really talking to
yeah,
because we don't talk about this in our community. Mental health, grief, miscarriage, like it's just things that it's almost like it's somewhere in the ethos. We're not really talking about it. So this was so great. Thank you so much, Ken, for
no
sharing
problem.
your insights, for sharing your experiences. So guys, I hope you get something out of this. Thank you again for being part of our community. And please feel free to share, send it to everyone, and let us know suggestions. Let's have a conversation on grief, as heavy as it is, but we want to keep talking about it. So, thank you again and have an amazing weekend. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.